Hello and welcome to this video. Today I'd like to talk about labels for psychological mental disorders, or just mental disorders really. And I wanted to, if you are triggered by discussions about mental health, mental disorders and such like, and labels, then I suggest that you don't watch this video. So I will give you time to shut this down. And if you are interested, then stay with me on this, and hopefully this will be a discussion, my observations about labels given to mental disorders. And why am I talking about it now? I mean, when I first started in psychology, which is getting on for 20 years ago, 20 plus years ago now, I do remember there being labels, and what I'm talking about is the labels given to mental disorders. Okay, so people did have schizophrenia. People did, people were labelled with personality disorders, and they were, and there were these. There probably was attention deficit and ADD and ADHD and all of these other things, and there were also can't think of the name of them now. There's so many. I mean, there literally are so many of them. I just printed off a list, and there's approximately 117. And there's probably more than that if you go into the subcategories for each of the mental health, disorders, as it were. So, you could, let's say, go to the anxiety disorders, and then there would be a subset of anxiety disorders. I mean, why am I talking about this? Okay, why? Look at this. These are all of the mental health disorders. What I'm observing is labels are being handed out like tablets at the moment by a lot of therapists, and a lot of psychologists, and a lot of psychiatrists, counsellors, whatever you want to call them. So therapists in the world of, psychotherapists in the world of psychology, who, like myself, help people through mental disorders, mental issues, or whatever a person might have. I think personally that there is a danger by slapping labels onto people. I have seen some pretty bright people, young people recently. I follow quite a few young people on YouTube. They're musicians, they're artists, they've got other skills, they're good at vlogging, they're good at, mukbangs and all of these other things. And then during the course of those videos, they happen to mention that they've got mental health issues, and they've been labelled with all these things. And there's several groups that I am involved with, and I follow and such like, and I participate in on Facebook, various different subjects, cross-section of things, which is kind of irrelevant, but a lot of them are psychology related. And again, I'm seeing people saying things publicly that they've got this disorder and that disorder, and they've been given this, and they've got blah, 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 blah. I mean, I saw a discussion a little while ago on a forum. It was a few days ago now. And this woman rattled off, must be nearly a dozen mental health disorders, labels that she'd been given, I guess, by her therapists, or therapist, whatever. And she was able to rattle these things off, like, you know, I have this, and I have this, and I have this, and I have this. And then she had a photograph of all the medications that she was particularly on, which again ran into some ridiculous amount of medication for all of these disorders. And I just don't think that's really healthy. Mentally very healthy for people to have all of these mental disorder labels put onto them. I mean, I find it quite... I just think it's really bad, because I see young people who, you know, they're young, they've got their whole life ahead of them, they're involved in certain things, they're engaged in certain things, and then, you know, they've got issues, obviously, mental issues with dealing with anxiety maybe, or, you know, whatever other issues they believe that they have, or that their therapist, you know, has put onto them. And then all of a sudden they think, oh, well, I can't do X, Y, and Z because of this label. You know, I behave in this particular way because I have this label. And I just think that that's bad. I just really don't see how that's helping anyone. I don't see how that is helping the client, the person that you're supposed to be helping. To me, when I had therapy myself, it was actually more about what was it I wanted to change? What did I feel I needed to change? What was, you know, and then there was an exploration of what it was I felt I needed to change, or how I wanted to behave differently, how I wanted to cope with something. There wasn't a label around when I had therapy. I mean, you know, touch wood, I didn't have, you know, major mental health issues. I had things I needed to deal with, usually because I had such massive life-changing things going on at that particular time, and I needed to cope with them, you know. But I wasn't slapped with a load of labels, you know, because maybe they just weren't around now, you know, like they are nowadays. And I just wanted to get the problem sorted, and thankfully the therapists that I had at the time that were helping me through these big life changes and such like were more interested, and this is how I like to work. They were more interested in helping me to understand what was going on up here, why it was happening, what it was that I was doing, what it was that I was anchoring to something, or what it was that I was triggering, or what it was, you know, that I was allowing in, what filters I had in front of my eyes, that I was, you know, reading the miscommunication, and, you know, all of those things were what I was being broken down and sliced up and diced up, and until I actually understood what was going on. And then I was then brought through the process of, well, this is how you can change it. Do you know that you can change that behavior pattern? Do you know that now you know what is causing the problem for you? This is how you can change it. Or maybe this is how you can change it. You know, how about if you did X? How do you feel about that? And then I was taken through, you know, progression, you know, kind of almost stepping into the future, as it were, and seeing myself with a change of attitude, seeing myself with behavior changes that I really wanted. And that's what I do for my, you know, for my own clients. There were no labels. I didn't walk around saying, oh, well, you know, I behave this way because I've got this label, or I've got that label, or I've got this, you know, I've got this and this and this and this down here. That wasn't the highest priority. And I have real concerns at the moment, because I see other therapists online who are doing YouTube videos going into huge detail, okay, about all of these things here, I believe that that's creating a problem. It's a bit like reading a medical book. I always remember when I was younger that somebody that I knew, they were older, they were adults, and I was still a teenager at the time, but this guy had this medical book. Okay, it was a real proper medical book. It wasn't something that was just for home medicine use and such like. It was a real proper doctor's reference medical book. Okay, and this guy, every time he coughed, every time he felt he had an ache or a pain, he was flicking through that thing, and then he would go around saying, oh, well, you know, I could have this, and I could have that, and I could have this tumour, and I've got this syndrome, and I've got this ailment wrong with me. And I'm sure he used to drive his doctors up the wall, because, you know, he would be off to the doctors with this theory in his head because he'd read this reference manual about what, you know, about this ailment that he had. And I always remember that, and that stuck with me until I was older, because I just thought that to me goes to prove that if you don't know enough about something and you just have the label, you know, and I could click on any one of these on the internet and go and start reading the symptoms and the medication, suggested medication for that symptoms, and, you know, for whatever it is, then surely you're just creating a bigger problem for someone. Isn't it more important, I believe, to sort out what each individual person feels they need to sort out without being labelled as something, without being told, oh, well, you have this syndrome, you have this ailment, you've got this disorder? I just think it's creating more of a problem, and more, you know, and if somebody already has mental health issues or a mental disorder of some sort, then surely isn't that just layering it on more and more and more and more? You know, as people start layering on all the symptoms and all the disorder labels that they've been given, and, you know, I just think it's creating a more problem. And I see this when I see people talking about their mental health issues and such like online. And, you know, they really seem to they're grappling with the label that they've been given, and then they're obviously reading up about it, and then they're making that, and because they're focusing on it, they're making it more and more, you know, deep within themselves, and they're kind of layering it on, you know, thicker and thicker, and then believing that they can't get over it. And I always kind of question, well, surely isn't that what your therapist is supposed to be sorting out for you, or helping you at least to sort out for yourself? It's a bit of a problem, I think. Like a lot of things in today's society, we seem to be obsessed in our society with names for things, with labels, with syndromes, with disorders, with, you know, all of these other things, instead of, and I call it navel gazing, you know, instead of actually really sorting out what the core problem is, rather than focusing on what the client needs to do to overcome or change what's going on for them. That's what's more important than labeling somebody with something and then saying, oh, well, you know, you've got ADHD or ADD, or you've got bipolar disorder or some personality disorder, you know, and you just have to live with it. It's like, I just think it's rather odd. It is rather odd. But anyway, that's my thought for today. I'd be very interested to hear what other people think about this, and whether you've noticed this kind of increase in labels being used for mental disorders nowadays. And yeah, interesting subject. And I look forward to speaking to you again soon about another subject. Thanks for watching.